Welcome to the Art of Succession podcast with Barrett Young. Join us as we explore the strategies, stories, and insights that shape the journey of leadership transitions and business success. No matter where you find yourself along the journey, this is the podcast where you'll find the tools to make it happen.
July 4th, 2002 was my freedom day. That was the first day that I was on my own. So it's 23 years almost. So for the first 6 months, I was just like a sponge. I was just learning from my dad and from people on the field just to see what's going on. Because remember, I knew nothing. What saved me from going back and maybe not, becoming successful later in life was that there were no jobs at all, like zero. Nobody was hiring.
My name is Barrett Young, and this is the Art of Succession podcast. My guest today is Max Emma, CEO of Franchise with Max. Over 20 years ago, he joined his dad's landscaping company and helped grow that company to nearly 100 employees. After a series of ups and downs in that business, which we'll get into, he started an accounting company and through that became really interested in the franchise business model. Max, welcome to the Art of Succession.
Hi, Barrett. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Before we get started, I want to know, what really drives you to be a guest on podcasts? What brings you to the Art of Succession? What's the message that you really want to help my listeners through in our episode today?
Well, if I can put it in one sentence, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Because it doesn't seem this way when you're actually going through some issues in the business, at least when you're young. I'm talking about my experience when I went through, I'm sure we're going to talk about the downs of the businesses. I saw this as it. I saw this as, I'm done and I'll never be able to recover from that. I'm glad I was wrong and I'm glad I proved myself that it wasn't the case. But as somebody said, you can only connect the dots going backwards. You don't know what's going to happen. That's why that's probably, and I'm sorry, it's longer than one sentence, but that's really what I'm trying to do, just to tell people that, hey, you can do it. You just have to be strategic and have to be smart about it.
Yeah, great. A little perspective gaining then. Okay, awesome. So let's get started. 2002, you joined your dad's landscape company. Was this as a young man, straight out of college, plans for after high school? What brought you to join your dad's landscape company? Is it what you always wanted to do?
No, I did not. I actually worked for the largest employer in San Diego. So I rewind back a little bit. My whole family came from the former Soviet Union 32 years ago. I started pretty much from scratch, being 18, got my finance education, got the job. I also had an offer on Wall Street, but decided to stay in San Diego because, that's where my family was, and worked in corporate finance for 4 years. I had a really bright career in front of me. They offered to pay for my MBA, but my joke is that I was always kissing the wrong butt in the corporate world. So I wasn't getting promoted as fast as I wanted to. Maybe I was too ambitious, and I understood the corporate life is not for me. And I talked to my dad. He started one landscape maintenance route with 3 employees. That's all he could do. I mean, my English was zero when I came to this country. His was below zero, and he hardly learned English. So that's probably was the maximum of what he had. And he's like, well, if you want to, you can come and see what we can do with it. And so pretty much for the first few months, if not 6, he taught me, and then I just took over the business and learned and got my license and everything else. So no, I had experience in corporate world. So funny enough, I left the company. It was called Qualcomm, still is. It's one of the largest companies in San Diego, if not in California. July 3rd, 2002. So July 4th, 2002 was my freedom day. That was the first day that I was on my own. So it's 23 years almost that I haven't had anybody to give me a paycheck. So the only person who signs my own paycheck is me. So an interesting experience.
Yeah, for sure. You came in to Dad's company just to relieve like the ownership duties, or was the intent for you to come in and grow it? I mean, what's going through your mind at that time,
No,
leaving corporate and finance and
intent was definitely to grow it. I mean, I wasn't interested in 3 employees. And look, my dad was just perfectly fine handling 3 employees. And just take it to the next level. So I wanted to be my own boss, and eventually I wanted to see what can happen. I wanted to push further without asking anybody for permission. I've always been a guy, I'm going to ask for forgiveness and not permission. So that was my logic, and we did that. The company from landscape maintenance became a landscape construction company when I joined the company.
okay? What kind of growth? What kind of how did you grow other than speaking better English than your dad and the intent to grow beyond 3 employees? I mean, what kind of scaling were we talking about at this point?
Well, getting construction license, which is not an easy task in California, passing, I want to say it was 4 exams, if I'm not mistaken. And it was the business exam was the easiest one for me. I think I got 98 out of 100 because, I got a business degree from university. But knowing the Latin and the English name of all the plants and knowing what the difference between them, biology never was my strong suit in school. And please remember, I went to school in the former Soviet Union, so I knew Russian versions of that. So looking at them in English when I was learning, I had no idea what the hell those plants were. So that was interesting. But after a few failures, I was able to pass them on, get the construction license, and that was a huge start because that allowed us to go and start offering construction services.
Okay. About how long or how immediate did you start to see growth in the business?
So for the first 6 months, I was just like a sponge. I was just learning from my dad and from people on the field just to see what's going on. Because remember, I knew nothing. So I had to learn everything from scratch. And then in parallel, I was studying for the exam. So I'd say in about 6 months, 9 months, I passed the exams. I don't remember now exactly. And so within a year from joining, I've seen the growth. We started, slowly offering this service and hiring more people. And instead of using subcontractors, we started doing it ourselves, hiring our own concrete people and such. And slowly but surely we were growing until it became a snowball, which eventually we couldn't stop and eventually got under it.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second. What's going through your dad's mind having you join the company at this time? Is he looking to retire? Is he looking for help? What brought you in from his perspective? Did he want to grow the company? Just knew he wasn't the one to do it?
I believe he wanted some kind of a legacy and he wanted to do something with it. And look, he had a construction company back where I grew up, and had a ton of employees, and he had engineering degree, master degree. So having 3 employees changing sprinklers and cutting the grass, he could do better than that. He just didn't have the ability or capability to do that. So I guess for him it was something that he wanted to pass on to me. And once he did, they started traveling a lot with my mom, and which I think they've been to like 44, 46 countries. I mean, not a lot of Americans can say they went to so many countries. Coming from Russia and never being anywhere till the age of 55 and then seeing 40 countries, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's great. So is he owner in the company and walked away at this point from operating it, or had he transferred the company to you? Talk through that a little bit before we get into that snowball that you talked about.
No, we were in it together. So I took over the CEO role. I mean, actually, look, with 3 employees, the company didn't really have a CEO. So it's like 3 employees, and my dad was on the field, just making sure the job is done and talking to the homeowners. So that's really what it was. So when I came over and understood what's going on, again, took me some time, which is totally fine. I'm glad I took time to learn. We just started to create the company. I mean, eventually we got the estimating department. We got, people doing sales and foremen and managers and supervisors. So really it was becoming bigger. It was becoming a real business. I will argue that 3 employees doing maintenance route, it wasn't a business. It was just, a way to make some money, which is like very, very, very limited, because you are limited to the capability of one crew. Whatever they can do, that's all you can do.
But how long did it take Dad to walk away from working in the business?
He didn't
travel and things like that.
He didn't walk away. He just slowly was giving up more and more responsibilities, and eventually he was just there more like an advisory role. So he never walked away in this first company. So he was always involved, but less and less so. And look, he had 35, 40 years of construction experience. I didn't have that. So I always was asking him, and he was always there to give the advice. He might have not known the name of this particular process in English, but look, construction is construction. Like if we would pour concrete, he knew exactly how to make sure that the rebar goes in so it doesn't crack in 2 weeks. And I always had him on the job site when we're having important jobs, just to watch and make sure that the job is done correctly.
Okay. So I know you said you got underneath the snowball at some point. And I know that that's what's brought you to your next business. Talk to me about what happened there, what was getting away from you. We'll get into warning signs and things like that. But talk me through that process now as the business started to show cracks.
The snowball was that we started growing too fast. That was 2006, 2007. Southern California was growing like crazy, the real estate market. Our specialty was tract homes, because the tract homes in San Diego, and I'm sure it's the same in other markets, pretty much was dirt in the front, dirt in the back, and the building. And you had 60, 90 days, depends on the HOA, to get landscaping done. So you would buy it, and then you have to do a certain minimum. And that's where we would come in and do the actual landscaping, including the hardscape, concrete, and everything else. And later we went into designing and subcontracting pools, and we were doing fountains, barbecues, you name it. So it was like really nice yards that came out of that. So we're just growing too fast because people didn't want to wait 5-6 months to get their landscaping done for different reasons. They wanted to live, in a beautiful yard, and then also the HOA was on their back. So the waiting list was huge. And I'm like, well, we have the customers. So the next logical step is to get more equipment with the perfect credit history. That was easy. Hire more people, train them, and put them on the job site. And so we were doing exactly that. I think at the end we had, 20 plus trucks. We had equipment, small cranes, you bobcats, everything, and 96 employees. But what happened? They stopped building. The real estate crash of 08 or 09, it just, they stopped building, and we were going through the inventory of jobs that we had. We were finishing them up, but then there weren't any new jobs. But we had all this equipment that was all financed. We weren't buying it with cash. We were financing it, and we were getting great deals, but we had to pay with zero income. So the snowball was that it was a fast growth, and we did not pay attention to the financials. And the sad part was that I'm a finance person. My wife at the time, who also became part of the business, she had masters in accounting. So she understood accounting really well. I understood finance, but we were so busy growing that we didn't sit and look and see that, hey, it's slowing down. We need to do something right now. I don't know if we had any other way out, but probably wouldn't be so painful because, as you probably guessed, we didn't have a choice but go into bankruptcy. And the way construction works, you have to personally guarantee it. So it wasn't just business bankruptcy; it was personal bankruptcy as well. So I remember this. We had to sell the house. I remember I paid every employee. Every employee got paid, and then I literally hanged the keys on the warehouse, and I'm like, I'm out of here. And then I walked, and we declared the bankruptcy the next day, both business and then personal. And that was with one baby at home and one on the way. So that was pretty scary at a time, and I literally thought this is the end of my life.
I mean, that's a scary enough time just as a business owner, but you're specifically, I mean, the housing bubble targeted your industry. Um, how did you work through that? How did you learn to see this is not the end? Like there's going to be a future here, because I know just from what you've shared, and we'll get into this too. You started that company again, that same similar kind of company, right?
Not that company. It was similar.
What's going through your mind, and how do you bounce back from that?
So it wasn't the same company. It was
same industry though, right?
That it was maintenance. Okay, so I'm like, I'm done with construction. We're not doing it. I'm not buying. We're going back into mowing the grass and changing sprinklers and doing, just the maintenance. But with the experience, we also started doing some commercial maintenance. But it was just the maintenance. We did not do any installation whatsoever. I got burned pretty bad the way it was. But what was going through my mind was that I'm a failure and I'm probably not meant to be an entrepreneur, and I need to go and work for somebody. What saved me from going back and maybe not, becoming successful later in life was that there were no jobs at all, like zero. Nobody was hiring because, that was literally a crisis. I mean, mortgage, real estate, the younger people don't remember that, but people who are even younger than me, they remember pretty well. There were no jobs. Everybody was getting laid off. So I don't think I could have gotten a job at McDonald's at the time. Not that I was looking, but, I probably couldn't. So the only reason I went and opened the company again, because I didn't have a choice. So that saved me. That turned out to be a good thing. At the time, I was like, oh my God, I'm risking again and doing it. But, I didn't want to do it. So I was, really depressed. But, the second company was open because we didn't have any other option. So, as I said, one baby at home, one on the way. They want to eat. So we went from huge house that we owned, which we ended up selling, to renting like a really, really small place until, we slowly recovered from that.
So neither you nor your wife were able to find work to get through this?
Well, I mean, she was, once we declared the bankruptcy, she was 4 months pregnant. So definitely, she wasn't looking with another baby at home, and we didn't really have the money for babysitters anymore. So not really, and the jobs weren't available. It wasn't just that she didn't want to get work, or I didn't want to get work. It just wasn't available. So we opened the company, started doing it again, and when the first company closed, that was the first idea came to our mind. We wish we had an accounting company doing our bookkeeping. No, so we would get the sign what's going on earlier, and the fail wouldn't be that painful. So that gave us the first bell, So which is, I strongly believe in the slide that one thing leads you to another. It's like life is a series of events. You would not get to point C without going to point A at point B first. That's just my life always proves that. And so that was the first sign. And then once we opened the maintenance company, started growing it, that was, after a while became easier. It wasn't as big. It was relatively smaller. And I think at max, we got to 18 or 20 employees before we sold. But at some point, we're like, okay, we are finding, the bookkeeper who's going to be doing the bookkeeping for us. And I remember going on Google. I don't know if it was Google, it was something else at the time. I remember internet wasn't what it is now. So I found 20 bookkeepers in San Diego area. Some didn't return my calls. Some I met, some talked on the phone. And I got 12, 15 proposals for exactly the same scope of work. And the price differed from $200 to $2,000 for exactly the same scope of work. And that's what told us that, hey, there is a gap in the system, which we need to go and, see what and monetize it, because no way you can get such a huge fork between $200 and $2,000 for exactly the same scope of work. And that's how bookkeeping started. That was the beginning of the bookkeeping company. And it started actually in parallel to the landscape maintenance company. So it was running two businesses at the same time. But once we started bookkeeping, after a while, we're like, you know what? We probably need to sell it. And so we put it out for sale. It took about a year, and we actually sold it and started concentrating on bookkeeping full time.
Gotcha. Okay. So then it was the housing bubble for sure. But it sounds then like your own personal books were not up to date either at that time. You wanted to have an external person to hold accountable for that, and so company's just growing so fast. It's not as important.
Yeah, we were we obviously were filing taxes, and we were fine this way, but we didn't do it, on a monthly basis, and we didn't sit down and analyze. Hey, look at this project. Let's do this. Let's do that. So that's what we weren't doing. We understood the importance of it, and after a while, right now, I just told you what happened, but I take 100% of responsibility. So if it's anybody's fault, it's me. It's what's mine, because there were a lot of companies who made through. They maybe caught some fat, and they, let go some employees, but they sat through the storm, and then obviously the house bubble started again, and it hasn't finished yet. San Diego is growing like crazy right now, and it's the same situation. People need landscaping, people need maintenance, and so on and so forth. So it's funny that the company we sold, the maintenance company, they're still around. We sold in 2013. Just literally 2 days ago, I saw a truck on the freeway, and I was actually trying to drive and take a picture. That was so cool to see it after a few years, because I haven't seen them on the road for a few years, but it was really cool.
Gotcha. Now, as a bookkeeping company for business owners like this, you mentioned cutting the fat, letting people go. What were some of the warning signs that you guys were just the volume and the speed at which you guys were growing? You weren't catching? What would be your advice for business owners? Because a lot of people don't realize how easy it is to grow too fast.
Well, what killed, I don't say killed us, but because what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So it didn't really kill us. But what happened, we were overcapitalized. So we had a lot of equipment, and there were a lot of payments. So if let's say all the equipment was paid off or we didn't have that much, we would figure it out because, okay, the income goes down. Yes, unfortunately, I have to let some people go, but, we still had some clients and we still had some business and we were doing a little bit of maintenance at a time. So probably it would have been 96 employees, but I don't know, 10, 15, 16, something that, we can sit and then slowly, add back on. But the problem was with all the equipment and everything and all the payments. It's just, the income went, I said it went to zero. I didn't go to like exactly zero, but close to it. When you go from 96 employees to, way less, obviously it goes down, but the expenses stayed. And so the warning sign was just to see what your payments are and see if they're sustainable. Okay, maybe don't buy that much equipment. Maybe rent it. Again, the employees, is it bad to let people go? Absolutely. But if you don't have a choice, you don't have a choice. And look, people could go and get unemployment. Yes, it's not a full amount, but it's something. But what are you going to do with equipment? I mean, the bank saying, no, we want our money. You took the loan. We gave you 0%. We gave you a great deal, but, still have 3 or 4 years left on this equipment.
Yeah. And even if you say, come and get the equipment, they're still going to require the difference from you. You're just not going to have the equipment to be able to make that.
So. And the saddest part, they would go after me personally because I had to personally guarantee it all. Because even though the credit card said the name of the company, it's still my name and my social security. So ultimately, just doing the bankruptcy for business would not help because they would turn around and go after me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you built the next company, and it sounds like you also diversified the revenue just a little bit more. You said going for larger, like corporate contracts and things like that, commercial contracts rather. How soon, you said you built the two alongside each other. Was that like you come out of this experience with a resolve that, or was it just the market, like you said? I know that you and your wife both had experience in finance and accounting and stuff. So why go back to building a landscaping company and not just build a bookkeeping company, I guess is my question.
Well, back in 2009, again, she was, due with the baby. And, bookkeeping was just the idea that if we did, would be nice. But between that and actually opening bookkeeping, 2 or 3 years passed. So we were actually, look, at a time, opening bookkeeping company for whom? I mean, all the businesses are going down, not all, but a lot of them. So a lot of people losing the jobs. And we didn't even have this idea at the time. Hey, let's stop everything we're doing and start doing bookkeeping at this time. So landscaping seems like, hey, I know how to do it. It's just going to be maintenance, going to be way smaller. And, once I opened it, I was able to bring my top employees. So I'd say, hey, here's a new gig. Do you want to come and work with me? Like most of them said yes, and they came in and we started working together again. And those were the people I trusted.
Okay, gotcha. Makes sense. Okay, so you sold the landscaping company, the rebuilt landscaping company, or the new landscaping company about 12 years ago. And you decided to focus your attention entirely on bookkeeping. How did you go from that? I guess, what was your entry into franchising? Because that was not a franchise. You built that from scratch. So talk to me a little bit about the growth of bookkeeping.
It wasn't a franchise, but again, point A leads to point B, point B leads to point C. So the person who sold our landscaping business at some time introduced me to a small franchisor that had, several franchises just because they needed bookkeeping for their franchisees. So we talked, okay. And then they gave us one franchisee to do bookkeeping for, which was outside of San Diego. And we're like, not that we can do it remotely. That's really interesting. And then remember, that's a while back. We're talking about 15, 16, 17. So now it's like we're talking about Zoom it wasn't like that. People still wanted somebody in their office. I mean, nobody even considered that Skype was the top of the communication channels at the time. Again, who knew? He would sell the bookkeeping business. We stayed in touch. He introduced. We started talking, and I'm like, franchising. That's interesting. There are a lot of them because I didn't know much about franchising. Like most people here, I saw that McDonald's is a franchise, and that's pretty much it. I mean, I knew there were more, but I really thought that franchising in the US started with McDonald's. I was amazed to find out that it started in the middle of the 19th century, and not with McDonald's, but you learn it as you go. And so this one franchisor led to introduction to more franchisors. I'm like, I really like this. It can be a great model. And then started digging in and going to the events and meeting more and more franchisors. And today, Bookskeeping, that's one of the companies that I still own, has over 100 franchise brands that we do bookkeeping for all over the United States. So we are one of the largest providers of bookkeeping services for franchise brands. So like Sport Clips, Fast Signs, a lot of other ones are our clients. And so that's how we got into franchising. And then being around franchisors, I really said to myself, I want to be like them when I grow up. You go to a room with a bunch of franchisors, the energy in the room, everybody is trying to help each other. Like I've seen many times, two main competitors sitting at the bar at one of the franchising events that I go to, probably 8 or 10 of them a year, and talk to each other. They each have 3,000 plus units. They're direct competitors, and they're having a drink and talking and sharing. Okay, this was awesome. I'm like, this is really, really, really cool. And on the same token, right now, I'm way smaller franchisor than a lot of them, but I go at the show in Las Vegas that we have Expo every year. It's about 3,500 people, probably 2,000 franchisors. You literally can come to the CEO of McDonald's or any other brands, stop them in lobby and ask a question. And he or she will stay for 20, 30 minutes and spend time with you and then give you their phone number. Just, hey, call me. Just, any questions. People are like that in franchising. It's absolutely a unique industry of its own. Yes, a lot of them are competitors, but they all believe in abundance. That's enough work for everybody.
I hope that you've enjoyed part 1 of my episode with Max Emma. We have new episodes twice a month, interviewing business owners with their own succession stories. If you're interested in being a guest on the show, you can find the link down in the description below. We're going to pick up the interview in part 2 of our discussion as Max moves into franchising, and he's going to share how a franchise broker can actually help through the acquisition process. If this episode has been helpful for you, I ask that you please share it with others, and I want to thank you for watching The Art of Succession.